On our legal team, we represent more than 200 victims who were injured mentally, physically, and psychologically at the Astroworld Festival. Obviously, some of these victims have been catastrophically injured, who we represent, and fatally injured and are fighting for their lives. At the onset, we continue to ask for prayers for 9-year-old Ezra Blunt. We are praying for a miracle with his parents and his entire family at this time. This morning, we are announcing the filing of over 90 more lawsuits in this matter now that we have collected the information and the details and the evidence that they were present at the festival, that they sustained injuries at the festival, and that we will make sure that they get justice, because this should have never, ever happened. You're going to hear from several people this morning that is just symbolic of the number of people who we represent that were physically able to come and be here with us today. Some of them are not physically able to come. Some of them, for psychological reasons, are still haunted by what happened that night. As I told you, Attorney Hilliard with Hilliard, Martinez, and Gonzalez, based here in Texas. Attorney Darren Miller, based here in Houston, Texas. Attorney Ray Shackelford, based here in Houston, Texas. Marion Tolan and Charlie Jones from my office here are present. But most importantly, the people present with me are Ms. Gertrude Daughtry, who is seated here because she has severe injuries to her shoulders, her legs, her ankle, most prominent, and the fact that she was on the ground for 15 minutes struggling to breathe. You're going to hear from Rena Ihita, who is experiencing severe post-traumatic stress disorder after witnessing people right near her carried out on stretchers, as she also was caught up in the melee. You're going to hear from Dijon Isaac, who was trampled and stomped and tried to help people who he saw on the ground. You're going to hear from Bryce Nunn, who may be a little delayed trying to find parking, but he has a dislocated knee and is on need crutches to walk. Miss Unica Smith is going to talk to you about how she was crushed, how after she fainted, and how she didn't know if she was going to make it or not, and how she continues to have the recurring nightmare of what happened. And let me, before Attorney Alex Hilliard comes and talk to you about some of the details in the lawsuit that was drafted, this is not just about making sure we get justice for these people who have been severely injured. It is also about making sure that Live Nation and all of the organizers, promoters, and anybody else who had anything to do with the failure here that caused people to lose their children. I mean, families lost their high school children, their college children. People were injured greatly. And nobody should ever die from going to a concert. So this lawsuit is not just about getting justice for them, but it's about making sure that the promoters and the organizers know that you cannot allow this to ever happen in the future, even if you have to immediately stop the concert. And we understand, Attorney Hilliard, that there were several people who could have stopped this concert when we saw these tragic circumstances start to occur around the 9:05 time. And we have a timeline that breaks it down. And each and every one of them could have stopped the music, turned on the white hot spotlight board so everybody could see what's going on. Everybody could see who was on the ground. Everybody could see where everybody was at. And everybody could just take a breath. But they didn't do that. And that's what we are saying to Live Nation and everybody involved. In the future, safety must be paramount. As Kristen Blunt says so passionately, I thought it would be safe. I thought it would be safe. That's what all of them thought. They thought it would be safe. They never knew something that was supposed to be a great memory for them. They went with family and friends. They never fathomed that it would be the worst nightmare of their life, where they witnessed people be killed, where they witnessed people crying out in agony as they were trampled on and they were stepped on and they were crushed. They never thought they would be at the concert hearing people say something that we hear far too much now in the past year. People screaming, "I can't breathe." I mean, the videos are everywhere. And when you think about what we're asking people to do, if you were at the concert and you have video on your cell phone, please visit us at astroworldclaimshelp.com to share the videos with us. If you witnessed stuff, please call us. If you were injured, please call us. Because what we're trying to do is make sure we gather all the evidence so this will never happen again. Also, we sued on behalf of EB in part to get justice for him, but to also ensure that our independent experts could get on the scene of where the crimes took place and they could see for themselves what they described as a war zone. I mean, you had shoes, you had clothes, you had blood spots all out there at the scene. And that was important because it corroborated what our clients have told us, that they were just trying to get out of there. They left their clothes, they left their shoes, they left cell phones. And when you look at that scene, you see for yourself, people were literally fighting for their life just to try to get out of there. And so that's important, and the testimonial evidence is important. So if you have a story to let us know what happened so we can get to the answers of who failed in their responsibilities, because each and every one of them will be held accountable. And these brave victims are going to tell you what they witnessed, so other people hopefully will have the courage to come forward and tell their story. Right now, I have the honor of working with one of the best lawyers and law firms in America based here in Texas, Hilliard, Martinez, and Gonzalez. Attorney Alex Hilliard will talk about some of the details of our lawsuit. Then I'll introduce you to our clients, and then after that we will have questions and answers so we can try to answer as many of them as we can. Attorney Alex Hilliard.
The evidence in the investigation, which has been underway, including the inspection of the NRG Stadium, has revealed that the criminal behavior in this case started weeks prior to the date of the concert. There was no plan in place for this to happen. They are legally required as the organizers, the risk directors, the security personnel to protect over 50,000 people, and they didn't have a plan. At 9 a.m. when the gates opened, everything was out of control. As soon as the first person gets injured, if there's no plan, chaos ensues. The chaos grew and grew and grew until multiple people, 10 confirmed now, lost their lives. Thousands of people injured and tens of thousands of people who had to witness as CPR was given to their friends, to their daughters, to their sons, to their young brothers and sisters as they finally escaped a suffocating crowd. Over 45 minutes of torture as they tried to escape, feeling trapped, feeling like they would lose their lives. I promise you, every story from each client is more tragic than the one before it. Because nobody can be trapped like that without oxygen, without any place to move. Combining that with seeing someone die right in front of your eyes. And when you finally do escape that war zone and you get out of that crowd, you see multiple bodies on the floor. The medical staff was egregiously short-staffed. They did not have enough personnel. They did not have enough stretchers. They did not have enough defibrillators to try to resuscitate all the people whose hearts weren't beating. We inspected the NRG Stadium where this concert took place. Our experts have confirmed from the evidence that was obtained that this concert never should have been approved in the first place. We are talking about the largest organizer and promoter of festivals and concerts in the world. And when that happens, a failure of epic proportions on this type of scale, it is criminal. It is nothing but criminal. They have a higher duty to protect the public. They sold $350, $400, $450 tickets and decided not to protect even one of their ticket holders. Sadly, a lot of our clients didn't even understand when they bought their ticket, because how could they, that they were actually buying their own death sentence. We are honored to be representing our clients in this case. And at this time, I'd like to introduce to you a few of them so you could hear their stories.
Nine.
9 victims. I apologize.
9. Let's stay right there, Alex. Alex, stay up here. First, we're going to have for you Miss Unica Smith, who's going to try to tell you what she experienced that night at Astroworld Festival.
UNIQUA.
Take it.
34. Yes, ma'am. The Astroworld Music Festival was by far the most traumatizing experience of my life. I'm a mother of 2, and I went to the festival alone, by myself. So I never thought that by attending the festival, I was taking the chance that I would possibly not return home to my children. When I woke up Saturday morning, I found that so many people that I had spoken with in the crowd were exposed to so much trauma. I had no idea that people in the crowd had passed away that night. I was towards the front left-hand stage of the Utopia Mountain stage when Travis Scott began to perform. And the thing that stands out to me the most in my memory is that I remember being crushed from every side by human bodies all around me when he began to perform his first song. The crowd began to jump up and down, and with so many human bodies contacting your body from every area, with them jumping up and down, there's no way possible for you to maintain your footing. I was not able to stand on my own. We formed a camaraderie of sorts in the crowd to be able to hold one another up so that we do not go down. By the third or fourth song, I remember trying to make my way out of the crowd, and I tapped a woman to the behind me, maybe about 2 people behind me, to the rear. And when I tapped the woman to ask her to please move out of my way, you can tell that she was kind of having trouble breathing on her own. The next thing I know, the woman began to have a seizure. She was there with her best friend. Her best friend just started screaming out, "Oh my gosh, she's having a seizure. Please, someone get the medic." I'm looking around for the paramedics. I don't see anyone responding. The woman hits the ground, and I'm the next person behind this woman. Her feet are next to my feet. The only thing that I can think of is if I trip over this woman's feet, we're going to create a pileup. There's no way possible that I'm going to be able to get out of this crowd. Thank God there were people around me to help me and help me to remain stable. And the only thing that I kept reassuring myself is that if I can get out of that crowd with the dense air, with all of the heat, with everybody crushing me from every which way, then I'll be able to breathe, to return to normal air. And unfortunately, I made it through the crowd. I fainted as soon as I got through the crowd. I believe that by the time I started trying to leave the arena was around 9:45 p.m. I was caught in the madness and the mayhem until about 2:45 in the morning, not able to return to my children, no cell phone service, no way to Uber home, no way to contact anyone. There was no taxi service. So it was literally like I was trapped downtown by myself where I know no one. I don't know anyone here. So it was truly the most traumatizing experience. And I had no way of even getting back to my car because where my vehicle was parked, I later found out that was the reunification site for the people who had lost their lives during the concert. So I was purposely being rerouted from getting back to my vehicle because the families needed to go and find out whether or not their family members were still alive where my vehicle was parked.
You want to talk about your needs of nightmares
I have not. I know for a fact that I'll never attend. At this point, I feel as if I'm very shaken up with large crowds. I feel like yesterday, for example, I went to the nail salon, and as I'm sitting there, the Astroworld clips are on every single TV screen. You see people being carried out on stretchers. You don't have the opportunity to even move on with your life. You're forced to relive this over and over and over again. And I know that so many people think that's helpful, and I know that everyone has their story, but it just forces you to relive the trauma over and over again. And then there's discussions about it in person and online about what people in the crowd should have done, and saying, well, if you were in the crowd and you noticed someone dying around you, why didn't you help? I'm not a licensed medical professional. Only thing that I could think about was me not falling on top of this woman and crushing her to death. I'm not trained in how to respond to a crisis like that. So for people to pass their opinions on how the concert goers should have responded, that's completely inappropriate and traumatizing.
And the reality is, they shouldn't have responded. You should have had specialists, medical people, personnel there, crowd control personnel there, but they did not. And people are in severe need of mental health counseling because this has had a incredible mental strain on them. These many days later, I'm just watching her body shake as she relives it. It's something that as a community, we're going to have some serious mental health counseling. Thank you so much, Ms. Smith, for sharing your story. How old are your children?
They're 14.
14 years old.
Are they twins or? Yes.
Yes, twins. Next we will have Miss Rena Irahita come and tell you about her experiences that night. And you can just talk as loud as you can. Take your time. I'll spell it. You want to spell it, brother? Okay. REYNAIRAHETA. Take your time.
25. I can't put together the words to say. You can't use the words horrifying or anything. I just remember Houston becoming a new home for me and being excited to finally get to share a little bit about what I love about Houston, and having my best friend come into town, and that was all we were looking forward to, this concert, just making memories and everything, and always being on alert, knowing, okay, these concerts are scary, people making jokes about it, but I always like to be aware. I remember that day we were gonna get there later, but something just kept telling me, let's go earlier. We went around 2, and I remember it was just a mess. It was horrible. There was people just walking in and out everywhere. Like, it wasn't organized. You wouldn't see securities. I remember getting to the checkpoint and looking at my best friend and be like, why are there people here? Like, why are they just standing here? There's no one here, covering them. Like, I don't feel safe. I hope everything is okay. Not knowing what happened earlier in the day. Then I finally got in. They never checked my bag or anything. They were letting people pass by with beers, cans, and all these different things. They weren't even checking on anything. I remember getting to the merch and just being like, okay, it's probably crowded in there. Let's see this merch line. Let's wait here. And all of a sudden you just hear yelling and you just see people running. And I just remember I just got in defense mode and looked at my best friend and told him we need to leave. We need to get out of here. We're going to get trampled. And I remember him just being like, it's okay. Don't freak out. You're good. You're overreacting. And I'm being like, no, I'm not overreacting. I told you from the beginning. These people are waiting for something. They're waiting to just run in there. Like, everyone knows that people plan this out. And it's just frustrating knowing that I was just a person that never experienced any of this, and I could see it, and not seeing any workers anywhere, no police or anything. And then I got lucky to be able to cut into the right merch line. And I remember waiting there thinking, okay, the chaos is done. I remember seeing people getting thrown on the ground, and I remember making the comment to my best friend, I refuse to ever be at a place and witness someone die in front of me and me not be able to do anything. And I remember thinking, okay, it's settled, people aren't gonna come in anymore. I remember seeing security just recording everything, and I'm like confused what's going on. It took some minutes, and finally you see a bunch of sheriffs come in horses. And the annoying thing is, instead of them going to block off the VIP section, preventing from more crazy people to come in, they all just face us. And you just see them recording us. And it was just a horrible feeling, thinking people that's supposed to protect us is just looking at us like we're some fools, like we're supposed to basically protect each other. And I remember just yelling at them, why are you guys pointing at us? Why are you guys intimidating us? We were here. We're trying to avoid all this chaos. I remember 2 hours passed. People were getting really crazy on the left side of the merch. They were blocking it off. They weren't letting people come into that merch line. And I remember just saying, something's crazy is going to happen. I still don't feel comfortable here. And I remember my friends trying to joke off, trying to get me to feel good about it and not overreact like I always do. But I just didn't feel good. And then all of a sudden you just see people cheering, and then everyone just breaks in that line and they get crazy and they started pushing each other just to get merch. And then I remember I was like, no, I was like, my line is short. I know something is going to happen. And I just remember looking back, and then everyone just running, jumping, them pushing us to the side, not caring. And I remember yelling at them, like, why are you guys acting like this? Like, it's nothing. Like, we've been here for hours. Like, at least be respectful. Don't throw us to the side or anything. And I remember just dealing with that for 4 hours, being in that merch line, asking people, can you please give people water? Can you give us this? And I remember security just joking with us, laughing at us, telling us, oh, you guys are okay and everything, trying to joke around about us, about the merch and all these things. And I'm like, this is so insensitive. thank goodness for that merch line, because I was able to also meet 2 other people. And those 2 other people, we stuck together. It was about 6:30 where we finally were able to go into the event. And I remember, I need to go get water for everyone. I need to make sure that we're good and everything. You guys stay together. And I went with one of my friends. We were in the long lines. You couldn't even get water. The horrible thing is, the free water stations, they only had one in the beginning when you enter, and then one all the way at the end, and no one could see where the porta potties were, and the lines were ridiculous, and the only way that you could get water is if you had a container. And I remember people begging, asking for empty water bottles, asking for anything, and being able to just, okay, I'm gonna take care of my team. And we were good. Little Baby performed. It wasn't that wild. And then it was time to move to the Travis stage. And when I saw people there, I didn't think much of it. I was just like, okay, I hope they're okay. I remember people just suffocating because people were just smoking in the crowds. There was different things going on. And in a type of environment like that, you can't have a lot of the oxygen taken away. And I remember just looking at my friends like, if we need to eat, let's go get everything now. Let's get together and do this and that. Okay, we got food, we came back, we were excited. We're like, okay, all that traumatizing stuff, let's put it to the side, hoping everything is gonna be good. I remember just looking everywhere, and then my friends warning me about everything. They remember them telling me, it's gonna get really pressured here. Make sure that you know that you can breathe good, make sure that you have space, make sure that if you feel claustrophobic, you go sideways. Do not go forward, do not go straight, do not do anything, go sideways and try to leave, because it will get packed here. And then I remember just having people literally push us, cut us in front of us. I had guys that were 6 feet tall in front of me talking about, we're gonna rage right here. One of them had crutches. I remember him saying, I'm gonna hit people with this crutch, and just making signals and stuff like that. And I remember just having anxiety and telling my friend, I can't do this. I know you're joking around about it, saying that it gets really pressured and you can't breathe, but I just can't. And I remember looking at the 2 people that I saw there, and then all of a sudden someone just fell on us, and that's what honestly freaked me out the most. And I looked at them and I told them, I can't do this. And it was literally 1 minute left for the countdown for him to come out. That moment I heard that time go down and that annoying music finally stop, which I can't stop hearing that music, by the way. Like, every day it's just playing back and forth, and it's just traumatizing. And I remember just looking at them and telling them, I can't do this. I can't. I have to go. And the thing that breaks my heart the most is, I don't know if one of the people there is still severely injured or not. And I remember just seeing newses, and I hate that people are making false claims saying that someone died. And I'm me trying to figure out, okay, is this person good or not? Why didn't I tell them to leave with me? Because the moment that countdown went down, me and my friends just grabbed each other and we went sideways. And I remember everyone just pushing forward, and it was hard breathing, but we were able to get out. And we were in a section away from everyone. But I remember the whole time I just kept looking around. I was like, this doesn't feel good. Something's going on. And I remember him just saying words like, I need this stage to feel, I need an earthquake. And I was saying, why is he telling people that? I'm seeing a bunch of emergency response. I barely see anybody around. There was no security everywhere. It wasn't organized very well. I remember people just begging for water and me getting mad. Why is it, you guys have so much money, why can't you just give free water for everyone? The water was selling out, and it was hard for people to get it. The concert was done, and we all just thought, okay, it's just a concert. People are probably just dehydrated, they fell and everything. And literally, the last moment that I turned around, I witnessed someone on the ground. They were getting compressed, and there was an EMT machine on them. And I just remember yelling at the paramedics, please do your job. You're not doing it right. You're not taking care of him. And just yelling. And then you just see them literally grab the body and just throw it in a cart like nothing. And that broke my heart, because all I wanted to do was go and run behind them to make sure that that person was okay. But I couldn't, because everyone was trying to leave, and it was just chaotic. And leaving that place was horrible. I lost my friends. I got lucky that I knew where my parking lot was, but all that moment, I didn't know how crazy everything was, because I had no service. And then waking up the next morning, having calls and texts from people asking, are you okay? Are you good? This and that. And I was wondering what's going on. And then finally looking at the news and seeing the stuff that I saw wasn't just what I was thinking, was really more than traumatizing. That word can't even I can't even speak of it because it's such a horrible feeling, thinking that I witnessed someone lose their life right in front of me and have people there just say, oh, it's drugs or it's just this and that, and me saying it's a life, that it could have been more, and then seeing the face of who it was breaks my heart to this day. And it's horrible because all of this could have been prevented before the event could have even happened.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
Sí.
Yeah.
Lo que ocurrió en este evento era bien horrífico. Yo pienso que todo eso se podía ser menos, pero la seguridad no nos importaban. La gente se reía a nosotros. I'm sorry.
You did fine. And what Unica and Raina is articulating is very similar to what everybody said. They went to the concert expecting it to be safe, not expecting it to be deadly. And they are shaken. And they keep having these nightmares even while they're awake at nail salons, still thinking about what they witnessed. And there are literally dozens of other people who have told us just as horrific stories. Next, you're going to hear from Dijon Isaac to tell you about what he experienced.
It's Dishon. So I was on the left side of the stage. About 45 minutes prior to Travis coming out is when it started to get intense. There was pushing that started happening behind us. Fights were breaking out. People were throwing water bottles. It was basically a war zone. And it just got worse and worse the closer to when Travis was coming out. I think around the 5-minute mark, the pushing began to be so aggressive. Each time I would be pushed, I'd almost touch the ground. Back and forth, back and forth. And at this point, you're at the mercy of the crowd. We were packed in so tight, we were like sardines in a can. And the feeling was like, imagine someone coming up behind you and bear hugging you as hard as they possibly can.
Wow.
And it's just bodies. So around 5 minutes, people started falling over. And I just remember the look of terror on people's faces around me. Everyone realized, like, we have to get out of here. And I remember there was a girl next to me, and before the pushing had started, she was just saying that she knew she wasn't going to enjoy the concert because she was already, like, I'm tall, so I was able to get air on the top, but everybody else basically was getting suffocated. And so when the pushing started happening, as soon as Travis came out, I felt the flames, and I realized I had to get out of there or I was going to get crushed to death. So I started making my way out, and basically I was telling people to back up. Hey, we're trying to get out. People were rushing the stage. There was one point where someone said, everyone put their hands up. I put my hands up, and I wasn't able to get them back down. When I finally got them back down, I basically teamed up with the people immediately around me, and I told everyone, like, get low and, like, basically put your arms out like this so you can create some space for yourself. And so we're doing that, and I'm starting to make my way out. I hit a fence on the side where a bunch of people had fallen down, and the whole time, like, I'm trying to pull people up, and I'm pulling someone up. There's people on the ground trying to, like, use me to pull themselves up. And I just remember thinking, like, if I fall, it's over for me. So I find a way to get off the wall, and I start going to the back. I'm making my way through the crowd. The whole time the pushing is still happening. The crushing is still happening. And I reach a point where I'm losing consciousness. And I'm like, I look above the crowd. I don't see an end in sight. And I just feel like people pushing me from behind. And finally I hit a pocket of air. And at that point, I just go as fast as I can through the crowd. That night I was wearing a sweater like this and a hoodie. And I sweated through both of them completely. Like, I literally took off my hoodie and I could squeeze it out. And there was sweat. I got to the end and I sat on the sidewalk and just sat there, like, in a daze for minutes. And I just remember bodies everywhere, like limp bodies, people pulling bodies out of the crowd. The minute Travis came out, I went with a friend and I turned around and looked for him. He was gone. There was no cell phone service, so finally, when I went far back enough, he called me and was like, bro, where you at? I spent 20 minutes on the ground, and there was a girl next to me who was for sure dead. And I didn't realize that people, other than that experience, a day later, he sent me an ABC News article saying that 2 people had died that were standing literally right next to me. And I'll never forget the look of terror on people's faces. That's the thing that sticks with me the most. I remember there was a girl at one point who was holding my hand. I didn't know this girl whatsoever, but she held my hand. I held her hand as long as I could until eventually I lost her in the crowd. But yeah, that was pretty much the experience in a nutshell.
Thank you.
It was a war zone.
And why is it that Deshaun and others had to try to come up with safety plans for an escape route? Where were the crowd control personnel there? Where were the medical personnel there to help them? I mean, it is malfeasance on every level. And that's why we have to get the answers. We cannot have where people go to a concert and they die. That is unacceptable in 2021. It is so preventable. This was so preventable. People sometimes try to say, well, you weren't physically injured like Miss Daughtry or Mr. Nunn, who's on crutches. What's the problem? They have severe mental issues. Post-traumatic stress disorder is very real, and we're hearing it over and over again. These people are not able to just turn the page and go back to normal. And we as a society should take very seriously their mental health after this tragedy. And we're saying to Live Nation and everybody, don't try to sweep this under the rug as if it's not real. It is real. It's very real. Thank you, Deshaun.
How do we spell your last name?
It's ISAAC.
And how old are you?
31.
And you live here in Houston?
Yes. I ended up walking home from NRG after that.
To where?
A Museum District, Montrose area. Thank you.
Now we're going to have Miss Daughtry come to you. She's having some problems ambulating, so we're going to assist her.
Okay.
Just take your time.
I've never experienced anything of a. It's like, I just literally thought I was gonna die. I was like, I never thought that going to entertainment would turn out to be such a disaster. It was a nightmare that I never forget. I can't sleep at night. Every time I close my eyes, I see it. It's just, I'm lost for words for it. Never seen so many people on the ground fighting for their life. Never know that you will buy a ticket and it will be your death ticket. It's devastating. It's like a nightmare. I don't even like talking about it.
And that's her mental injury. Can you tell a little bit about your physical injury, Ms. Daughtry? And
when I fell to the ground. My back, I was walked down. If it wasn't for my brother, I probably wouldn't even be here today. But we managed to get out the crowd. But I was walked on my back, my leg. I already had my ankle messed up, and it got injured. It was like I couldn't breathe. I was.
Um, and and I will spell it loud so everybody can hear. Gertrude, Gertrude, Daughtry, Daughtery. Uh, 59 years old.
Yes, ma'am.
And she's a grandmother. Uh, and this just shows that this was truly promoted as a family-oriented festival. And you have people of all ages there to enjoy the festival, never knowing that, as Ms. Daughtry said, it would turn into a disaster that has changed their lives forever. You know, it's one thing for us to talk about it. It's another thing for you to witness it with your own eyes. You saw the pain on Unica's face. You saw the pain on Raina's face. You saw the pain on Deshawn's face, and certainly you saw the very expressions on Gertrude's face, and it's real. And so we have filed this lawsuit, and we expect that because we have dozens of other people calling every day, and we're trying to collect the information, the whole team of lawyers and staff, that we will be filing others, because one thing is for certain: we will not let them get away with this. There will be accountability, and we're going to make them have changes in the industry. Whether it's George Floyd or the children in Flint, Michigan, all these cases, not just about justice for those who are injured in this tragedy, it's about trying to make changes where all of our children and our neighbors will be safe. They will get to come home to their mothers and fathers, and they will get to come home to their brothers and sisters and their friends. And unfortunately, not everybody who went to Astroworld Festival got to come home to their families and friends. And that's why we're here. We'll take some of your questions. We're representing over 200 plaintiffs. And we filed over 93 lawsuits to date.
As of today, we have filed 93 lawsuits. We filed one lawsuit this morning on behalf of 90 plaintiffs.
Attorney Crump,
Yeah.
Attorney Crump, could you please,
Crump.
Attorney Crump, could you please provide us an update of the status or the state of Ezra Blunt, and has Travis Scott communicated with his family or any of the...
A lot of stuff is private, and they want it to remain private. His health condition, the only thing his mother and father continue to ask is for prayers. Please continue to pray for that 9-year-old baby. That's the only thing. They don't want to get into anything else, but ask everybody to pray for them. Yes. Yes.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that you're going to look for every responsible party.
Absolutely, everybody.
What about Travis?
Everybody. His name is on the lawsuit, but Live Nation, we don't ever want it to get lost. That Live Nation is the largest concert promoter in the world. They do these every day. If Travis Scott is accountable, he absolutely should be held accountable. But don't forget that Live Nation does this every day, all day, every part of the world. So if we want the change to make sure people are going to be safe, we got to be talking to the person who is the parent corporation, the industry leader. That's the only way you get change. That's the only way we save lives. We don't just point at the little people, we point at all of them, and we don't let the big people get away.
Mr. Crump.
Yes.
This morning, a spokesperson for Travis Scott said, extent of the tragedy. Do you buy that?
We're investigating everything. We're not taking anybody's word for anything. That's why we had all our experts out there on the scene, meticulously documenting. We're getting all of the audio from all the 911 transactions. We won't leave not one I undotted or one T crossed because they matter. They deserve that. Israel deserves that. People who lost their lives deserve every question to be answered. So we're not going to let anybody off the hook. Yes, ma'am.
Firefighter logs that go line by line every minute leading up to
Alex, you take this one.
mentioned that criminal intent was shown in the police report. Are you guys looking at those logs? Have you seen them? What do you think?
We have seen throughout the investigation, we have seen evidence from the logs. It does show that there was knowledge on behalf of the promoters, on behalf of the security and for-profit medical corporation that was hired to be there to protect people. This was a mass casualty event and should have been shut down long before it actually was finally shut down by the HPD, the Harris County Police Department. The logs only detail a tragic timeline of understanding and knowledge from these corporations that people were dying and that steps should have been taken to shut the concert down, and nobody did anything.
Yes, sir.
Question for Deshaun and some of the squad.
Deshaun, if y'all want to come up. If y'all can come up, we're with you. And if you don't want to answer a question, just say, step a little closer if you will. Nika, will you step a little closer?
While you're going through that help.
I don't know if the performers were aware. I feel like once I got out, I saw Travis stop the concert once or twice to make sure people who had passed out were helped out. But other than that, I was honestly, I couldn't pay attention to really much at the time. I was just trying to process what had just happened.
Any other questions?
You
Unique. And if you can't just
there were sheriffs on forces. Is that sheriffs or was that police? You know, and can you describe just a little bit more of you tried to get help from them? What was their attitude?
I wouldn't. I'm sorry. I wouldn't know the difference.
That was Rena.
Oh, okay.
Rena, can you describe
Horses.
I
She can't hear your question. Ask your question
Can
again.
you describe that there were sheriffs there on horses? Was that the sheriffs or do you know?
To be honest, I just heard everyone in the crowd yelling the sheriffs, and then I remember having to get on my tippy toes and seeing them, so I wasn't really sure like what I saw, but I know that
Did they end up helping anybody or?
no. To be honest, what they were doing, like what they would do is when people were still coming in, because the thing is they didn't block off the VIP entrance. What they were doing is we're just scaring people with the horses, and I remember just seeing the horses being very distressed too and being very like incorrupted. They didn't want to work with the people because they were distressed too, and I remember them just walking around and just recording. Honestly, I didn't see them try to help anybody. The people that got that did stop, the people that broke in were the other security, the people that were hired, but I didn't see any of them do it. And then throughout the event they weren't there. I literally would just see the same two police officers. I didn't see any more throughout the event.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe there's anything more that the Houston Police Department could have done at the site of the concert as it was going on, or were their hands tied just like the fire department?
Well, we're investigating everybody and everyone. We think that there was failure of responsibility on every level, and we want all those questions answered. One of the things, you get emotional because these were such preventable losses, and as you get to know the families, it just hits you. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I just keep thinking about how Israel parents, what could be going through their mind when you are going to a family festival that has been promoted like that. They have so many children who are fans because of Fortnite, because of McDonald's, kids meals that, had Travis Scott. And so you knew this was going to be family oriented because you promoted it to the world. And so it really is about, Attorney Hilliard, when I get involved in a case, it's really not just about trying to get justice for this family or that person. It's about trying to make change. Thurgood Marshall would always say, no, we're not just fighting for this individual, we're fighting to have a greater impact on the larger society. And they have concerts and music festivals all over the world. And if it can happen here in Houston, it can happen in your city too. So what I'm trying to do, what we're committed to doing, is trying to have a change in the industry for the better.
Can we say who's named in the lawsuit?
We got the lawsuit available. If you go to press@bencrump.com, we will provide. Oh, everybody, absolutely. You can go look back at all our lawsuits. We have 20 defendants named, and that number is growing.
And Deshaun said he was standing next to some people who had passed away. Deshaun, do you know who that was?
I believe it was the guy's name who starts with a D. It was the one who was trying to save his fiance, and that's the reason why I remember them.
Babe.
Yeah. And then I think it was James or Jake. Who was the other one?
Jacob?
Yeah.
Jacob.
I think so.
Is that a defense that you're talking about?
No, this was before like the shoving and everything started. They were, I think, to the right of me, and then I remember the fiance trying to get out and like trying to help her like get between me.
Deshaun's rate is that he was ages, please.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah,
31.
And Rain how many? 25. And Unica. And Unica's 34, mother of twins. Attorney Hilliard, I'll try to take one or two more questions. And yes.
You were talking about change, and obviously that's long term. Can you speak and also possibly on victims, because I'm sure you guys have thought about it. What change do you want to see? What would you see changing in the industry?
Certainly, I'll go first, and then Attorney Hilliard, and then if any other witnesses. You know, when you think about crowd control, they know how many tickets they sold. You know how big the arena is. You can predict and strategize what to do. You have to have, I'm sure the demographics, you have to have proportionality. For every 100 people or every 200 people, we need to have a medical provider. We need to have a security personnel. We need to have a escape route. We need to have a plan. We want them to be more vigilant in preventing, not being reactive, but be proactive. And that's what we think was lacking here. They were not proactive in dealing with all of the foreseeable things. It is not Deshaun Isaac's job to come up with an escape route. He was a customer. He had paid money to purchase the ticket. He wanted to just come and enjoy the show. He didn't know that he was going to have to be a emergency life care provider at the show. He didn't know he was going to have to be a law enforcement officer trying to clear the path. He didn't know he was going to have to be a mental health counselor trying to hold on to the young lady's hand who he didn't know to try to encourage her just to stay together. Miss Daltrey, on the ground, as she told us in our intake, she thought she was going to die on the ground. They should have had people in place to be able to deal with crowd control and deal with safety. And so whether there's some policy or whether there's some regulations that have to be passed, you can never have people go to a concert and die. I mean, unjustifiable deaths. Alex,
It's not rocket science for Live Nation. Like we said, they're the biggest billion-dollar promoter, organizer, and advertiser of these festivals around the world, and they acknowledged that there was a danger and a risk that people were going to get hurt in the plans for this festival. And when that happens, the first step is you put an age limit on who can attend. You do not let 9-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 5-year-olds into a concert that you have acknowledged as an organizer and promoter that people are likely to get hurt. We need extra security and site personnel on site. And then allow every single age to come in the doors. To what? To make money. That's why they did this.
Do you any? Okay. All right. Last question.
Can you kind of go through that? Like, how much evidence are you going to have to wade through? How long?
We anticipate the evidence is going to be, it's going to be months as the criminal investigation happens. We anticipate that over the next months, we will continue to investigate every single level of failures, from the very top at Live Nation to the security team. We're not going to leave one stone unturned. As you know, there's a criminal investigation happening, which we intend to comply with. But as this lawsuit goes on, we will be taking the depositions of the highest ranking executive officers that had the power to shut this concert down and didn't. And they're going to have to testify under oath as to what their reasoning was, what their unimaginable reasoning was for not shutting it down when they knew people were already dying. It had been declared a mass casualty event.
And I use Ms. Daughtry's words. It was a disaster. And Live Nation, if you want to prevent future disasters, you need to act now. Not just for those who were injured, but to make sure in the future we prevent injuries. We don't want to be reacting like we're doing here in Houston. We want to be proactive as we go forward. Last question.
I was wondering if Gertrude or Raina or Black, Nicola or Sean talk about who they think ultimately bears responsibility. Is it Live Nation, Travis Scott, others, the police?
Yeah, I want to
Who do
answer
they
that.
think in their minds?
No. They shaking their head. That if somebody harmed you or you died, I think the question in your mind and your loved one's mind is we want everybody held accountable. Everybody. And so I want to put that question to bed once and for all. Everybody and anybody who had any responsibility for this festival should be held accountable. Thank you. Yeah, that's her chair. Get that chair. Where are you from?
One of your
Okay. So, we'll say, John, we have some transportation for her?
Was it an Uber or Lyft or something like that?
Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Joe.
Hey,
Okay. Rena, do me a favor, will you grab her side?
Oh, Miss Dutch, you have
Now, just, I want to put you in order.
We're getting you a ride home, Miss Dutch. Okay.
Okay.